Hello everyone, Mobius1 here, bringing you another Star Wars Unlimited video. In this one, I want to talk a bit about the upcoming Intro Battle Hoth new player game that we're apparently getting more information on tomorrow. I've been kind of putting this video off for months now, but with the new details dropping tomorrow, I decided I'd better get this out there just so it's on record. Firstly, let me be clear, despite the clickbaity title of this video, I don't actually think FFG stole my idea. I mean, if you're making a head-to-head Star Wars game, it doesn't take much thought to come up with the Battle of Hoth as a set piece for the game, as it's easily one of the most iconic battles in all of the Star Wars films. Heck, this isn't even the only Battle of Hoth-themed game coming out in the near future, as Days of Wonder also recently announced their Battle of Hoth-themed Memoir 44 spin-off. And I know that I'm not even the first person to come up with custom Star Wars Unlimited scenarios, as back in December of last year, the YouTuber Thork posted a video on a custom 2v2 Battle of Geonosis scenario. Almost immediately afterwards, in January earlier this year, is when I started working on my own custom cards for my own Battle of Hoth game mode. Then, roughly a month later in February, FFG announced their own version of what I had been working on. All we really knew about it at the time is that it would contain 2 pre-built Hoth-themed decks and was supposed to be geared towards teaching new players how to play the game. But then they eventually did end up teasing an image that had a couple of custom cards, or at least cards that weren't included in previous Unlimited expansions. And I'll be honest, at this point, I was feeling a little discouraged. Even though I had already put a couple hours into designing and balancing the cards, at this point I started to lose motivation on working on my own, and it kind of just stagnated. And that's kind of where it still stands today, in a mostly unbalanced, unplay-tested state. Still, like I said, I wanted to make this video kind of just as a record so we can see how my ideas compare to whatever it is FFG's been cooking up. So with that being said, let's take a look at what I made. The very first thing I worked on was a new base card for the Rebel player. We already have Echo Base as a 30 HP command base in Star Wars Unlimited, so I wanted to add a little bit extra layer on top of that by introducing the Shield Generator. With only 15 HP, the Shield Generator prevents the Imperial player's capital ships from attacking the base, meaning they'll need to rely on their ground forces to, of course, invade the planet and destroy the Shield Generator before their heavy-hitting Star Destroyers can actually damage the Rebel player's base. Once the Shield Generator is defeated, it is replaced with the standard Echo Base. The Imperial player's base, the Imperial Fleet, is also a 30 HP command base. However, the text prevents the base from being damaged by normal means. This means it doesn't matter how many units the Rebel player has, they can never win the game by just simply attacking the Imperial player's base. Instead, they're going to need to find another way to deal damage. And honestly, I'm quite proud of the theming that I've come up with. Instead of winning the game by attacking the Imperial player's base directly, the Rebel player needs to first play these GR-75 transport units into space. Then, on a future round, you can attack the Imperial fleet with it, kind of simulating the transport escaping the battle, which will defeat the transport and deal 10 damage to the enemy base. Ultimately, this means in order for the Rebel player to win, they just need to escape with 3 of these transports. Of course, the Imperial player is going to need something to prevent that from happening, so of course we have the Imperial Star Destroyer here, which, by the way, we're 5 expansions into Star Wars Unlimited. How do we not have just a generic Imperial Star Destroyer unit yet? Anyway, I decided to come up with this as just kind of a generic Space Sentinel unit, which conveniently has enough attack to defeat a GR-75 transport in one hit. Meaning it's pretty risky for the Rebel player to play a transport if the Imperial player has Imperial Star Destroyers in play. That is, of course, unless the Rebel player has an ion cannon in their ground arena, which they can use to deal 2 damage to an enemy capital ship and exhaust it. In my early designs, I had it so that the Imperial Star Destroyers only had Sentinel while they were readied, which would allow the Rebel player to use the ion cannon to not only exhaust them, but also cause them to lose Sentinel so that the transports could escape. Although in playtesting, that kind of seemed to make it a little too easy for the Rebel player to win, although I think that idea still could be used if we found other ways to balance it. You may also notice that I invented a new trait for this card, and that is the Structure. I don't think it would be too crazy for FFG to come up with structure cards that could be like ground-based facilities or even space stations. But following up on the ion cannon, we also have the DF9 turret, which if you've played any of the Star Wars Battlefront games, you know is kind of like an anti-infantry turret. Because of that, we give it only 1 power. However, when it attacks, if it's attacking a non-vehicle, it gains raid 3. So instead of hitting for 1, it's hitting for 4. Similarly, the P-Tower turret is basically the same thing, except anti-vehicle instead of anti-infantry. Now, this might be a little too specific, too narrow of design, you know, only having some units that are effective against vehicles and some units that are effective against infantry. However, I liked the idea of the Rebel player potentially starting with several of these units already in play, kind of, you know, like how the Rebel had their defensive line already established at the battle. So again, there's probably a lot of balancing and tweaking that needs to be done, but these were all just kind of theory crafting ideas anyway. I did also make an event, Harpoons and Tow Cables, which allows you to exhaust a friendly speeder unit and defeat an enemy walker unit. Kind of a clever way of getting rid of the AT-AT walkers, or technically this could also be used against AT-STs, which of course the Imperial player would have plenty of. This card ended up not being used quite a bit, mainly because it was too difficult to get a speeder to stick on the board. So I think this card probably needs to be redesigned, maybe like discard a speeder from your hand or play a speeder and do the and defeat a walker or exhaust a walker, something like that. I'm not really happy with this current version of this event. I do think this needs tweaking. But yeah, definitely wanted to include something like this in the game because, I mean, come on, it's just that iconic. On the Imperial side, other than the Star Destroyer, the only custom unit that I created was the 501st Snowtrooper, which is literally just a reskinned Death Star Stormtrooper, 1 cost, 3/1 aggression villainy unit. Nothing special here, just didn't feel right putting Death Star Stormtroopers in the deck, so had to make something unique. But now let's talk about what is arguably the most broken part of everything that I made, and these were admittedly broken. Both of the leaders that I have designed were broken on purpose, and the idea was to make them ridiculously overpowered and then slowly scale them back through playtesting until I found a good balance. So yeah, go ahead. You can post in the comments all you want of how absolutely broken some of these leaders are, Leia in particular. But yeah, so Darth Vader leader, aggression, villainy, action, pay 1, exhaust, draw a card. Then you either discard a card from your hand or deal 2 damage to a friendly unit, so you can damage your own units in order to continue to draw. Or if you don't like what you drew, you can just ditch something else out of your hand. So card draw seemed to be like the main thing that each of the decks was missing. So both of these leaders have abilities that are built around drawing more cards. I liked the idea of Vader having to pay not only the 1 resource to draw the card, but also either like getting rid of something else or damaging a unit. I thought that that was kind of thematic for Vader. But yeah, he actually ended up being the weaker of the 2. And then Vader deploys on 8, which is admittedly really late in the game, but he was supposed to kind of be like if the game lasts this long, the Imperial player is really, really close to victory. So he comes in 5/8, same stat line as Spark of Rebellion Vader. However, his on attack, instead of dealing 2 damage to an enemy unit, again, draws a card, and it's basically the same ability as his leader ability. It's just on attack. Again, I feel like this needed to be tweaked a little bit, maybe only 1 damage to a friendly unit, or maybe even draw 2 cards. That's really broken. Believe me, I know. I guess the stats could be tweaked as well. But yeah, this is simply the most recent version of this when I stopped working on this. Then on the other side of the table, we have Leia Organa, which, by the way, we did get confirmation that the FFG Battle of Hoth box is also going to include a Leia deck and a Vader deck. So again, same wavelength FFG. Come on, I got some good ideas here. Get me in on it. Leia's ability, you exhaust her to exhaust a friendly unit and draw 2 cards, which sounds insane, but the reason we have the exhaust the friendly unit is kind of because while the Rebel player their deck is mostly ground units, and like I had already mentioned earlier in the video, I was kind of playing around with the idea of the Rebel player starting with ground units in play already. There were a lot of turns where the Rebel player will just claim initiative with like 3 or 4 units. So I liked the idea of getting to use those units in a different way. Again, drawing 2 cards seems kind of broken, but the only way for the Rebel player to win, again, is to get those GR-75 transports, play them into space, and attack the Imperial fleet with them to simulate escaping. And if you didn't draw those GR-75s, it was a really, really slow and painful death and loss for the Rebel player. So digging through your deck quickly was kind of a necessity for the Rebel player to win. So this probably just needs a higher cost, like maybe her ability should require a resource and Vader's shouldn't, something like that. Kind of invert the costs there. But yeah, drawing cards was definitely required for her. And then with her flip, kind of a weak body, only a 2/7. She did get Restore 2 because the Rebel player didn't really have a whole lot of ways to heal their base, and it's kind of the only clock that they have to survive, is the Imperial player is going to be pretty much pounding in their the shield generator and then Echo base. So with her on the field, the Restore 2 kind of made sense. And then, yeah, on attack, like I said, admittedly, super OP. Draw a card, and the next Rebel you play costs 1 less. She did not end up living for more than a round or 2, and because of that, I felt it was okay to have her ability kind of OP. But, I mean, think about it. When you look at all the different units, and even the speeders that are, from Spark of Rebellion, most of the Rebel units that were in this pre-built deck of mine were low attack. So once the Imperial player got, like, an AT-AT or 2 on the board, or deployed Darth Vader, there really wasn't much the Rebel player could do to stop them, which is where like the Harpoons and Tow Cables event kind of came into play, and why the Restore 2, constantly drawing a card, constantly discounting units, kind of made sense. Yeah, this was the last custom card that I've got. It was fun working on this. I did get to play test this with a couple of people, and even though it wasn't perfect, people seemed to have fun with it. I really enjoyed designing it. I love making stuff like this. I love flexing my creativity and sharing it with people. So I don't know. We'll see what FFG's got. Maybe I'll continue to develop this, or maybe I'll start working on another scenario, which I'm sure we're going to get new ones from FFG as well. But like I said in the beginning of the video, I really just wanted to get this out there so that everybody could see what ideas I had, and we can compare that to what FFG's doing. And yeah, so there it is. Let me know how broken these are in the comments down below. If you had any cool ideas yourself, I'd love to hear about it. If this is something you're interested in and you want to see some more custom stuff, or even just custom cards, I do those too. Leave a like in the comment, and maybe we'll do more of these videos in the future. But that's it for now. Thanks for listening to me talk about my creations. Mobius1 here. I'll see you in the next one.